ever think about just chucking it all? You know, like quitting the job and chasing a passion.
Yeah, I think we all have those daydreams.
But what if you were making $250,000 a year? Would you still take the leap?
Well, that's the story we're diving into today. It's about a guy named Paul Millard.
Sounds a little scary, to be honest.
It definitely challenges how we think about success. We're taking a deep dive into an interview he did with Grind Success. It's a platform for entrepreneurs, and Paul wrote a book called The Pathless Path.
So this isn't some reckless jump, right?
No, not at all. I mean, it's inspiring, but kind of terrifying too.
Yeah, my palms are already sweating just thinking about it. So tell me, what was Paul's situation?
Well, he was making $250,000 a year as a consultant.
Okay, so not exactly peach peanuts.
But he felt this pull, like something was missing. He wanted something more fulfilling, something that really tapped into his passion for writing.
And I'm guessing he had some kind of plan.
That's the thing. He had a safety net, like 50 or 60 grand in savings.
Okay, not a complete leap of faith then.
But he also had to pay back a signing bonus, like $24,000.
Oof. That's a chunk of change. So what was his big plan?
Surprisingly, there wasn't one.
Wait, he just quit with no backup plan?
He knew he was unhappy, and that was enough. He just needed a change.
So what did he do? Where did he even start?
It all started with something pretty simple. He started writing on Quora.
Quora? You mean that question and answer website?
Yep, that's the one. He committed to writing every day before work for 100 days.
So is that the secret? Just write on Quora every morning?
Well, it was more about flexing his creative muscles, He didn't even realize he had it in him.
Did this Quora thing actually lead to something bigger?
It did. It got him back into writing. He started a blog, and that eventually led to his book, The Pathless Path.
Ah, okay. So did he land a book deal?
He self-published it. And get this, in the first year, he sold 10,000 copies.
Wow. How much did he make from that?
It brought in about $50,000 in revenue. Not bad for a first-timer, right?
That's amazing. But self-publishing seems like a ton of work.
It is, but there's this misconception that you need a bunch of money to get started.
I see. So how's year 2 looking?
Even better, he sold 15,000 copies.
Wow. And how much is that in dollars?
That's about $75,000 in revenue. And you want to know the best part?
Lay it on me.
Last year, his total income from everything was $249,000.
Seriously. So he's making more now than when he was a consultant.
And over half of that came directly from his book sales.
So he went from a high-pitched corporate job to making even more money following his passion. That's incredible. But wait, there's more, right?
Oh yeah, there's a twist.
Okay, I'm all ears.
He got a book deal from Penguin Random House.
Penguin Random House. The big leagues.
Yeah, but he turned it down.
What? He said no to Penguin Random House. Why would he do that?
Well, it all boils down to creative control and money, With a traditional publisher, he would have only gotten like $2 per book.
Oh, I see. So he's making way more by self-publishing.
He keeps most of the profit. $7 for a paperback, $8 for hardcover. Even almost $4 for each audiobook.
That makes sense. More control and a bigger piece of the pie.
But how did he even self-publish? Isn't that a lot of work?
It is, but he broke it down into steps. First, obviously, he wrote the book. Then he got it professionally edited.
Makes sense. It's got to be polished.
Exactly. Then he used a platform called 99 Designs for the cover.
Okay. And how about the formatting and stuff?
He used tools from Amazon and another site called Reedsy, which is specifically for authors.
So how much did all that cost?
Less than $7,000.
And he made over $130,000 profit from the book alone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not a bad return, right?
So he wrote the book, got it published. But how did he get people to actually buy it? Didn't he need to market it?
Absolutely. He did a ton of podcasts and guest appearances.
That's smart, getting the word out.
He was active on social media, kept his blog going, and he even gave away free copies of his book.
Wait, free? How does that make him money? It was a strategy. He could ship a book anywhere in the U.S. for just $4.50.
So kind of like an investment.
Exactly. Reaching influencers, sparking word of mouth, things like that. And clearly it worked. But his income isn't just from book sales.
Oh, tell me more.
He still does freelance writing and consulting, using his experience to help others. He even created courses for people who want to leave their corporate jobs.
Wow. So he turned his whole experience into a business.
Yeah. And he does company workshops too.
That's really cool. He's built a whole brand around forging your own path. So what's his number one piece of advice for wannabe writers out there?
Write every single day, even if nobody's reading it.
Just get it out there.
Exactly. Ignore the fear. Just write. And he also stresses the importance of making space for creativity,
What does that even mean?
like taking walks, reading, letting your mind wander, anything that helps you tap into that creative energy.
That makes sense. So all that being said, what's Paul's life actually like now? I mean, did he actually escape the rat race?
Well, get this. He has no set morning routine.
Like he wakes up whenever he wants.
Pretty much. Family comes first, spending time with his daughter. He works a few hours a day and only on projects he enjoys.
Sounds pretty ideal.
And get this, he doesn't have a fixed schedule.
So total freedom.
You got it. He can take breaks whenever he needs to.
Wow, that sounds amazing. He really did create a life on his own terms. He found fulfillment and financial success. Inspiring, isn't it?
It really is. It's a powerful reminder that there are alternative paths to success.
So before we move on, let's break down what we've learned from Paul's story. What are the big takeaways here?
Well, first off, success doesn't have to be a traditional job. I mean, Paul is living proof.
Right.
And second, writing can actually be a really good career choice, especially with self-publishing.
So anyone can potentially do what Paul did?
Third, self-publishing gives you more control and maybe even more money than traditional publishing.
Yeah, that was a shocker.
Yeah.
Turning down that deal.
And lastly, following your passion can open doors you never even knew existed.
So basically, we should all just quit our jobs and become self-published authors.
Well, not exactly, but there's a deeper message here. Paul didn't set out to be a writer or an entrepreneur. He just followed his curiosity and took a chance,
Yeah, and it led him to a whole new life.
A fulfilling one and financially rewarding, too. It's pretty amazing.
So what you're saying is we should all just embrace the unknown.
In a way, yes. But we'll talk more about that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, I'm hooked. But before we move on to the next part of Paul's story, I have a question for our listeners. If you could design your ideal workday, what would it look like? Would you be working from a beach, creating something completely new?
I know, I've thought about it.
Take a moment to think about the possibilities. We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into the Pathless Path. We'll explore how to turn those daydreams into reality.
That's a question a lot of people struggle with, like figuring out what they really want.
It's easy to get caught up in what we're supposed to do.
Right.
College, good job, climb the ladder.
Exactly. But Paul's story shows us there's no one right way to live a fulfilling life.
What I find inspiring is that he didn't just reject the traditional path. He actually created something new, something meaningful.
And he did it by following his passions, taking risks, embracing the unknown.
It's like he traded predictability for excitement. But I'm sure it wasn't always easy.
Oh, definitely not. And this brings us to a really important point. His success didn't happen overnight.
Right.
It was gradual. He put in consistent effort and adapted along the way. Remember that 100-day challenge on Quora?
Yeah, writing every day.
That was the seed that grew into his whole writing career and his business.
It shows you the power of small actions, right? Like just showing up and doing the work day after day.
You got it. It's those small actions that build up over time and create those amazing results.
Paul's story is a perfect example of that. So how can our listeners apply this to their own lives?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah, it can be tough to take someone else's success and make it your own.
Definitely. So where do we even begin?
I'm all ears.
Well, one of the biggest takeaways from Paul's story is about passion. Finding what you're truly passionate about.
Like, what would you do even if no one paid you?
Exactly. He made time for writing, even with his demanding job. He didn't just stumble into it.
It's about actively seeking out what brings you joy.
Exactly. And once you find it, take small steps to cultivate it.
Doesn't have to be anything crazy, right?
Right. Even just 30 minutes a day to write, paint, code, whatever it is you love.
So making that commitment to yourself and actually following through.
Consistency is key, but so is embracing uncertainty. Paul had no guarantees when he left his job.
It's about being open to new possibilities, even if it's scary.
Yeah, and that's where the real magic happens, when you let go of the fear and see where life takes you.
Speaking of surprises, let's talk about Paul's decision to turn down that book deal. That was a big one.
It really shows what was important to him. A traditional deal comes with compromises. He didn't want to lose creative control.
So it was more about ownership than money.
Yeah. He wanted to set his own prices and marketing strategies.
That's a powerful message. Sometimes the best path is the one less traveled.
It's about defining success on your own terms. For Paul, it wasn't fame or fortune. It was freedom.
Freedom to create and live a life that reflects his values. It's a good reminder that we don't have to follow society's definition of success.
You get to make our own.
Absolutely. So for our listeners out there, what does success really mean to you? Are you living a life that reflects that?
That's a question we all need to ask ourselves.
It's easy to chase external validation like money or status.
But real fulfillment comes from within.
Aligning your actions with your values. Doing what brings you joy. It's about listening to that inner voice, even if it's telling you to do something different.
One thing that struck me was that Paul didn't just go all in blindly. He took calculated risks.
Yeah, he had savings, and he started small.
Exactly. He built his skills and his audience gradually.
It's about taking those small steps, even if your goal seems really far away.
Testing the waters, gaining experience, building momentum. And remember, it's okay to change course along the way. Paul's path wasn't a straight line.
He adapted as he went. He started with Quora, then blogging, then self-publishing, and now he does consulting and courses.
He was always evolving, finding new ways to use his skills and passions.
Right. So it's not about having a perfect plan from day one.
It's about experimenting, learning, pivoting when you need to. It's a journey, not a destination.
And that's what makes Paul's story so inspiring. It shows us that it's possible to create a fulfilling and successful life, even if it's not the conventional way. But how do we know when it's time for a change? What are the signs? And how do we course correct?
Those are great questions, and something we'll dive into in the last part of our deep dive into the Pathless Path.
You know, it's interesting how we talk about feeling stuck, like we're on this train going the wrong way.
Yeah.
But Paul actually did something about it.
It's so easy to just complain, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But Paul's story shows us that we actually have the power to change things.
You have to take ownership and actually take action.
And it doesn't have to be this huge overnight change either.
No, not at all.
Remember, he started with small steps,
Yeah.
like writing on Quora every day.
Yeah.
It makes you think those little things can actually make a difference over time.
Those consistent actions, they build up, and eventually you create real change.
Paul's journey really highlights that you don't need the perfect moment or a perfect plan to get started.
Exactly. Just start where you are with what you have.
That's a great message. But I think figuring out those first steps can be really tough for some people.
Yeah, it can be.
How do you go from feeling stuck to actually taking action?
Well, I think for Paul, it started with self-awareness. Like, he really took the time to figure out what he loved.
And what kind of life he wanted to build?
Yeah. He had a vision for his future. It wasn't just random.
So it's about asking yourself those tough questions. What do I enjoy? What are my values? What kind of impact do I want to make?
Exactly. Define your own version of success and then figure out the steps to get there.
And they don't have to be big steps either.
No. It could be taking a class or reading a book or even just asking someone for advice.
It's about experimenting, seeing what feels right. And it's okay to change direction if you need to.
Totally. Flexibility is key. There's no one right path to success. Sometimes those unexpected turns lead to the best outcomes.
Paul's story also shows how the whole idea of work and income is changing. He didn't just find a new job.
No, he created a whole business model.
Using his passions and skills in different ways.
Yeah.
It's almost like he designed a life where work doesn't even feel like work.
It's what a lot of people want, right? More flexibility, more autonomy.
And work that actually aligns with their values.
It's possible to create that, but you have to think outside the box a little. You need an entrepreneurial mindset.
It's not just about finding a different job. It's about designing a different way of working.
And that can mean different income streams. Freelancing, consulting, creating your own products or services. The options are endless.
It all comes back to that idea that we have more control over our lives than we think.
Yeah, we're not just along for the ride. We make choices, we take risks, we shape our own destinies.
And it all starts with that first step.
Embracing the unknown, trusting the process, having the courage to create a life that truly feels right for you.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Paul's pathless path, I want to leave our listeners with this. Don't be afraid to question the traditional path. Embrace those passions. Take those risks. Define success on your own terms. You might be surprised where you end up.
And remember, the path less traveled is often the most rewarding, so go explore.